Good morning, sixth graders. Happy Thursday. I just want to apologize for all the students that logged onto science on Tuesday morning to find that the lesson wasn't working. I appreciate all of you that messaged me. It showed me that you wanted to get science done. It showed me that you were logging onto your computer, doing exactly what you need to be doing to be a responsible sixth grader. So keep it up. Um, I will tell you this, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that that happened because that was a 17-minute long video. So I've decided to take this new concept and instead of make that long of a video, I'll do a chunk today and a chunk tomorrow. So we won't have such long videos. That being said, this science lesson will of course not take a full 40 minutes. So please just go back to seeing if you have any old work for me, okay? We want to get those grades up. And if you're really not sure what you owe me, message me. I'd rather you message me than just think you're all caught up and have a missing assignment. Okay. So work on that. I will be updating the owed work list by this video. So also check that. Um, speaking of owed work and past lessons, I was grading your play posits from lesson 1. This page looked very familiar. And holy cow, we had a lot of different answers when I asked, explain the word trade-off in your own words. Many of you decided to I got a lot of different incorrect answers. So I have to go over this and I'm going to ask you this again. Many of you just gave me the definition of what a trade is, one thing for another. And you kind of just told me what the word trade means, but it's just, there's another level to the word. Okay. We're sixth graders. We are in science learning about this material. And it, although that is what trade means, this is a whole new idea. Okay. So we have to understand what trade-off means. So let me give you the formal definition. We'll go from there. A trade-off is a desirable outcome given up to gain another desirable outcome. So you're trading one thing for another thing. However, there's another part to it because you're giving up something for something else. That's a desirable outcome. In our instance, we're talking about human interaction with the land. An example of this, before I ask you what the word trade-off means in your own words, is we're going to look at the example from our textbook. So I think these two are the best examples. This is an example of trade-off. It is desirable and highly desired. Desired means wanted, a good thing that everybody wants. We would like to have a lot of land, beautiful land, lush forests, habitats for animals. However, us as humans, if there's more people in the world, we absolutely need more homes. We absolutely need, in our case, more schools. So it's desirable to have land and habitats for birds. However, it's even more desirable to be able to live and have homes and schools. So that is the trade-off that we are specifically talking about in our textbook, okay? So you can answer the question by saying, what is trade-off in your own words? Or if you want to give this example, use trade-off in a sentence, okay? So answer that question now. And we will move on to our next lesson. This lesson is pretty cool. I will be honest, it would be even more fun if we could do experiments and we could be in this classroom with me, all able to touch different experiment tools, and it's just not the case. So we are doing a virtual experiment today. I'm going to kind of show you an experiment similar to the one that this textbook would have us do. So lesson 2 wants to talk about, does it dissolve? Okay, we are talking about solids and liquids and gases mixing and becoming other substances. So we're going to read, and then we're going to see how solids can in fact dissolve into liquids, and liquids can in fact dissolve into solids. It's actually pretty cool. I showed a few of my homeroom students this video a few days ago, and they enjoyed watching it. So I'm excited to show that. So let's first do our introduction reading together. Lesson 2, does it dissolve? Today is an experiment day. In the previous activity, you observed how construction can change the shape of a land with its interaction with water. For example, filling in a wetland to build on it moves from one place to another. So they're talking about the delta wetlands, the picture with all the birds in the lake with the habitat becoming a neighborhood, okay? When water moves, it sometimes picks up materials such as soil, rocks, or substances in the soil. Think quickly about a journey of a raindrop. Let's say we're by the cliffs of an ocean and it starts raining. Think of how that raindrop goes down to earth. Maybe it goes onto some soil, goes on the cliff, and then it rolls down the cliff. It gets dirt, it gets materials, it gets maybe rock sediments mixed into it, and now it's in the water. And think how that can change the water if there was a lot of raindrops, a lot of rain. So different things like that. These substances can then be carried along by the water. So then now we have these things in the water, in the oceans, and that can affect the quality of the ocean water. Sometimes substances in moving water will dissolve, which means to mix the particles of one substance evenly into the particles of another. Okay, I think we all know what the word dissolve is, and I feel like as sixth graders, you would be able to describe to me what the word dissolve means in your own words. But from this textbook definition, it is dissolve or mix the particles of one substance evenly into the particles of another substance. All right. The ability of one substance to dissolve in another depends on the properties of the two substances. Dissolved substances can be helpful or harmful depending on the nature and the amount of what is dissolved. So for example, we could think, what if there was an oil spill right by the cliff because we built a factory right by the cliff. Now there's raindrops bringing in these oil spill into the ocean. Just think about how that can affect ocean life. In this activity, you will investigate what happens when salts, such as those that can occur in earth materials, are mixed into various liquids. Although you are focusing on this activity on solids dissolving in liquids and gases can also be dissolved in liquids. An example of gas dissolving into a liquid is when oxygen from the air dissolves into lake water that fish then use to breathe. And if you ever came in this classroom last year, Mrs. Brown and I, and your homeroom teachers, actually your fifth grade teachers, we all had betta fish, and we saw this. That's how fish are able to breathe, because of the oxygen from the air that gets into the water. That is oxygen that dissolves into the water, and that's how fish can breathe. It's pretty awesome. Don't forget anything you learned last year about those betta fish. All right. So let's look at this photo real quick and we'll go into the experiment activity. I'll put up some play pause questions. In the Middle East, the Dead Sea is so salty that you can see areas of dried salt on the shoreline. So this, for example, this water and the sea is so dense with salt that, you know, oceans, they have flows. They brush up on the shore. If it's windy, if it rains, the water levels change. It splashes up onto the rocks, and there's so much salt that the salt stays. Now the salt is absorbing onto these rocks, and it looks pretty cool. It almost looks like it's a snow-covered type of rock. And that's just because there's so much salt. So that's another example of how these salt is so small and can dissolve so well, but being, for example, splashed up on these rocks, it's actually very noticeable and can definitely change the contents of the water and the rocks. All right, so I'm going to now show you a YouTube video of some experiment done by he sounds like a high school scientist. So he's going to do an experiment with dissolving salts, and he's going to use something called Epsom salt. And for those of you that don't know what Epsom salt is, I believe you guys would most be able to relate to what that is that it's found a lot of people, maybe your moms, maybe your older sisters or siblings or aunts use it in the bathtub. It's actually very common. If you guys know what bath bombs are, Epsom salt is in that. It's almost like a, not bubble bath, but it's something used almost like bubble bath where it's just nice to use in the bathtub. It relaxes. It can even like soothe swollen or sore muscles too. So people like to use Epsom salt when they're in the bathroom. That's the most common use I know. That's what he's going to use for this experiment that you're going to watch. So I hope you enjoy it. Take your time with the questions. You have plenty of time to finish it, and I will talk to you soon.